one day the founders have been putting a lot of heat on me to figure out like what's going on. And the biggest problem is that we actually couldn't figure out where any of our pipeline was coming from. And this person owned pipeline reporting. I think this person was just in the wrong job, like was hired for the wrong thing. I was like, damn, this like kind of sucks. I don't really know how to make him successful here. And so I remember him coming to a one-on-one with me. He was like, are you phasing me out? And I was like, number one, I respect the shit out of you. Like, that is so great that you are taking control over the situation. Number two, I am struggling to see how you will ever feel good here.
That's my guest, Shannon Curran. Shannon's a marketing leader turned solopreneur. Today, she runs SSC Consulting, where she offers marketing advising services, fractional CMO work, and marketing strategy consulting. She's the former VP of marketing at MadKudu. She was director at OpenView before that and QuickBase earlier in her career journey. And she came on the show to share some of the toughest conversations that she's had to navigate in her career. From a boss questioning her leadership style, to a direct report asking if she was about to fire them, and even as a solopreneur, when one of her very first clients wasn't happy with her work. We got into all of it. If you're new here, I'm Andrew. And this is what this show is all about. I have candid conversations with amazing guests about some of the toughest moments in their careers, and we learn what they would do differently if they could go back in time. It's enough from me. Let's go ahead and hear from Shannon.
I grew up in northern Massachusetts. I actually grew up in the town I live in now, which is Haverhill. I was a very anxious child. I always joke I grew up like 30. As a kid, being really, really good at school, because I felt like that was kind of my self-worth was very much in how well I could do at things that I did. And I danced as much as I could. I spent my whole life dancing. Once I got to high school, I got into theater because it was like the free version of like what I really wanted to do. And then I ended up going to college for political communications, but really for dance. Like I went to a theater school so that I could dance 50 hours a week while I got good grades still. Right.
Oh, super cool. Where'd you go?
I went to Emerson. It's a very competitive school. Everyone is so driven. And like you spend your free time working on film sets and like working on, I danced like 50 hours a week and it was not what I got my degree in. So like everyone there it's funny because I went and got my business degree after part-time at Babson, which I feel like is actually like Emerson just for business, like so similar. Like every kid gets there and starts a business.
Were you into building businesses as a hobby as a child?
No. And I even said when I went to business school at the #1 entrepreneurship college in the world that I would never own my own business.
Really? Why'd you feel so strongly?
I'm super risk averse. I saw entrepreneurship as like a very privileged thing for people to do, that they felt the ability to just like invest money in something that could turn into nothing. What do you mean? Like, I know if I go work hard, I'm guaranteed my salary. It just wasn't a part of my personality at all. When I got to Babson, I was like, I'm a really good number two. Like, I love making other people's dreams come true. Like, I love the idea of like, this person has a really cool idea. Like, I'm going to help operationalize it. And hysterically, that is exactly what my business does. Like, so I run my own business, but I really am always like a number two to a founder. Almost always.
So for folks listening to this who don't know Babson, there's two schools in Massachusetts. There's Babson, there's Bentley. They're both really small business schools. They both breed entrepreneurship. You get to build businesses as part of being in school. Like, it's an amazing place. And so It's funny that you went to one of the #1 schools for entrepreneurship in the world and like didn't want that as an identity. My
route to business school was that I wanted to get an MBA and I wanted someone to pay for it. I had no interest in paying for it because a lot of people say it's not worth the money. It is $100,000 usually, most places. So like, I don't actually know if that ROI makes any sense. But for me, it was like, it's obviously worth it if I can go and work somewhere that'll pay for it. So I had started my career in nonprofit and I was looking to like niche down a little because I was such a generalist. This was also in like the early 2010s when like that was not cool. Like you had to be like a really specialized person to get a job. I saw this PR job at Babson and was like, and I knew someone that worked in the marketing team there, and you weren't working for the college. It was like an agency within a college. So it felt like you were still like getting real marketing experience. And so I ended up getting that job for like very little money. I made like $40,000 a year, I think, for the whole time I was there.
Did you get a substantial discount?
They paid for the entire thing.
Wow. That's amazing.
And at the time, there was no commitment to stay. It was like, as long as you work here, your degree is free. And also, this is back when MBAs were still like 60 credits. They were huge. Now you can get one for like 30 or something. And I went in person to every class, right? So it was like, I'd work all day and I would take class like 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week, and then I'd dance the other nights. So it worked really well for me. But I think I only went to Babson because it just happened that I got my job there And that was the degree that was free.
Yeah, but a great move.
Well.
And so what did you think you were going to do for your career?
So that is when I found tech. I remember taking this class called Global Connections Through Technology and being like, wait a minute, this is really cool. And I feel like I have a unique skill set where I really like to be able to make really complicated things simple. And that is something I certainly learned in undergrad. It just didn't feel like it compared yet. If there was any way to like make it work. But I was like, I think I want to be in tech. And I wasn't super excited. So this is like when Boston tech scene is like blowing up, right? And everyone is working like 80 hours a week and has these big jobs. And that is actually not something I was super interested in. And so I didn't like the idea of my job being the only thing I did. I was struggling with like figuring out how to make that work. But when I got so I was in PR technically, and I was launching all of these student startups. That's pretty much what I was doing, is I was doing their first PR push. So I pretty much rinsed and repeated like 60 times the thing I do now, which is like, what's the idea and how do you sell that to the market? As I went through the rest of my degree, I just started taking more and more marketing classes and taking more and more classes around technology. And then I got my first tech job, actually before I was even done.
And so you go on to do all these things, right? So you go to QuickBase, you go to OpenView, then you go to MadKudu. Is there like a moment somewhere in there where you're like, hey, maybe I'm onto something? Like maybe I'm good at this? Did you ever have a moment like that?
Yes. And it was the first time I'd ever felt in my career like, oh, I might be good at this. I might be in the right place. I tell folks that are early in their career this all the time. If you are not in the right environment, you're going to feel really bad at your job. And the first few years of my career were really tough because I'm not particularly good at things that entry-level people are supposed to be good at. I just want to do good shit, and I want to do it with people I like, and I want to work hard. And that was not always working in those earlier environments. Thinking about things critically was also really not seen as good. It was like, but we've always done it this way. We're going to continue to do it that way. Shannon, stop poking holes in things. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I hate this. So when I got the job at QuickBase, I went in there as an entry-level content marketer. And because I turned my PR job into like a content strategy job at Babson, and then left it right away, pretty much when I got a new title, because I was like, thank you, I will move on. And so I ended up working for a CMO, and he was able to see in me the potential of like, oh, this girl could like really grow this function. She thinks about things the right way. She doesn't know how to do everything yet, but she definitely like gets it. Right. And so I get in there bright-eyed, Bambi-tailed, like have no idea, just like ready to work at my first like tech job, which felt like my first real job. Like I was like, okay, this is like an office with like free beer and like, cold brew. And like, I want to spend my whole night here because I care so much. Right. And I was making more money than I ever thought I'd see. I was making like $75,000 a year, which to me was like, oh, whoa. Like, and I had a bonus that was potentially coming, which meant I could make almost $100,000 a year. So I was like, wow, I am rich, number one. And number two, I have this like big real job. So I get there, like I know a good amount about like what I could do, but the person that hired me, I was super excited to work for him, gave his notice 2 weeks after I started.
Oh, classic.
I ended up directly reporting to the CMO as a like entry-level person. And I luckily worked for someone that really believed in me and showed me how to be a leader. Like he didn't change for anybody. He walked in his, his running shoes and his jeans, but he was the smartest guy in the room and he just wasn't going to change. Right. And that's what I was yearning for, this place of like, I don't want to keep thinking about how I have to show up. I just want to be able to do great work. And I want to show other people that they can do that too. Like, yeah. And I had a really great run there. That's where I think I had this moment of like, all right, I can really do this. Like, it feels like I'm like seeing some success here. Of course I burned out like we all do, but like
But you felt a sense of like cultural identity. It's kind of what I've heard you say.
For sure.
This episode is presented by Navattic. If you've been following me or you're a fan of this show, you know how bullish I am on the interactive demo space and how much I love the Navattic team. Done a ton of stuff with them over the years, and they just dropped a bunch of new features that are really exciting. First, they've got a new template library. You can choose from a bunch of pre-made templates that have the most common demo use cases and all of the best practices built in, help you go 0 to 1 in a few seconds. If you're not sure what to build, they also have a new AI storyboard generator. It's exactly how it sounds. You drop in a website URL or some copy or a landing page, whatever you've got, it reads the information, pulls out the key sections, and then builds a working product demo for you in a couple minutes. And after you've built your demo, you'll probably want to use your data as part of your go-to-market approach. They've got a bunch of plug and play demo playbooks where you can send that interaction data to your CRM. You can use it to trigger alerts, all kinds of good stuff. It's actually a bunch of the things that my team built manually. It took us forever when I was in-house. So I love this. And after you've built your demo, if you need to make any adjustments, if you're displaying numbers or data as part of that, they have a new table AI feature, which helps you to clean up that data in a more conversational way and at scale in just a few seconds. They have made it so stinking easy to use your product as your marketing tool without needing an engineer or heavy design work. You can get started with all of this in their free plan. Check it out at navattic.com/value to get started. That's navattic.com/value. This episode of the show is presented by Appcues. If you work in product-led growth, you know how important activating and engaging new accounts is. Turning those new accounts into active users is critical to your success in a product-led environment, and it's typically why activated accounts is a North Star metric for many growth teams. Certainly why my team spent years working on our onboarding experience when I was in-house, both at Wistia and at Postscript. And that's why I'm so excited that they're sponsoring the show. They are just as passionate about helping the product-led community and companies fix their onboarding and retention as I am. They are the leading product onboarding and adoption platform for both web and for mobile apps, and they've created tons of resources to help this community. They've got the Product Adoption Academy, which is where you can get a free masterclass, like think courses, templates, examples, all the good stuff to help you break through your current plateaus and level up your product chops. I've got a course in there. It's my Value First onboarding course where I share the exact playbooks that my team used to help us onboard hundreds of thousands of new users. You can check out my course at appcues.com/value. That's appcues.com/value. And you can follow that link and explore all the different programs they've got inside of the Product Adoption Academy. All right, so you go from QuickBase, OpenView, Kudu. Now you're on your own. Obviously, I know you've done a bunch of work in between now and then. I don't mean to yada yada it, but I want to double click on some of the speed bumps along the way, right? So that's the stuff I really want to dig into. So in my coaching practice and day-to-day travels, I typically will talk to folks who feel like they're on a really good upward trajectory, and then they have some like feedback thing that just fucks with them for a while. And sometimes they have trouble letting it go. Sometimes it becomes a part of their identity. Sometimes it becomes something that they get stuck on. What comes to mind for you as I share that? Like, what's a piece of feedback that you received in your journey that you thought about for a while?
Yeah, there's a few. I'm very sensitive and also an extreme achiever. So like I'd get my reviews back and it'd be like 100 great things and like one piece of opportunity and I would just dwell on it forever. Like it's just, and I'm also the kind of person that really likes like in real time feedback. Like, can you just tell me right now so I can fix it, so I can get better? And so when I was in higher ed, we had a new leader come in. And it was very weird because she just like dissembled all the teams and made us all just like one amorphous content team, when there were some people that were like copywriters, some people that were different kind of writers. I worked in PR. But she just like made us all like took everyone's title away pretty much and was just like fight for it. It was awful.
Oh, great.
For the like 2 rupees I was making to work there. So I was like, it was not good. And there was a lot of competition and it wasn't great. And I remember just busting my butt. Like I was working so hard and we had a big announcement coming out and I got pulled into like the president's office, which was like a big deal. Right. And being like, all right, Shannon, can you handle this bio that needs to get written tonight? And I was like, I had a final the next day and I was like, fuck. And a few people around the table knew that.
And culturally at a company like that, or at a school, where you're also a student, but also an employee culturally, is that like an acceptable thing to be like, hey, I got a final tomorrow? Like, is everybody in school or is there not tolerance for that?
No, there's not really tolerance for it. It's not an excuse to not work.
Okay. You're an employee first. You got stuff. Everyone's got stuff. That's sort of the vibe.
Yes. And I never really used it as an excuse, like ever. But I was like, shoot, this is going to be like a problem. So a few people around the table knew this. And so they looked at me kind of funny. And I looked around and I was like, nope, I got it. I can handle it. And so I went home and I worked till past midnight. Because of course, like 53 pieces of feedback came back on this one paragraph that like just kept churning and churning and churning. So I had to be available till really late. And I then did end up leaving that job pretty soon after. And I remember going in and giving my notice. And I got this piece of feedback that was, if you want a seat at the table, you have to act like you belong at the table. And there's a lot of weird dynamics here of like, there's some gendered stuff of like a lot of women that have played the game and are like, you have to act like the men and you have to make the men feel good and you have to do all these things and you can't show up with emotion or feeling. And it's just a part of the game. Like you just have to suck it up and deal with it, soldier.
Was it the woman that gave you the feedback?
Yeah. And I was like, dang. At the time, I was lit up about it. I was pissed. I was like, you gotta be kidding. Like, I just worked till after midnight for you. Like, we make no money. We are doing like all this stuff. Like, what? God, this sucks. And I was so sure about leaving. I was like, I can't be successful here. Like, I just can't, like, I don't know how. Like, I literally do not know how. In the same conversation, I think she said too, like, you should really think a little bit more about what you can do for your job, not what your job is just going to do for you. And I was like, I'm not in the military.
I feel like that's a real boomer thing. That's like a different generational perspective. At least that's my view on that. I don't know if you agree.
No, it definitely is. And it's also like an institutional thing. Like a lot of people stay in higher ed for like 15 years, right? Like it was like not seen as good to leave and I was there for 3.5, which is like the longest I've ever been at a job. And they were like, you know, you haven't really put in a lot of time to deserve all these things. I'm like, time, guys, like we're not guaranteed time here. Like we gotta, like you guys don't like doing anything quick. So I like gotta get out of here. So that really bummed me out for a while because I had this process of like, so I don't look like the person or I don't act like the leader you want me to be. So I'll never be one. And it was really hard. And then I almost immediately go into an environment that is like, no, give me your idea. Tell me the thing, push back, do all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, like, and it felt uncomfortable at first, but
right, you had to reprogram a little bit. Yeah.
I was like, whoa. And then of course I went too far, you know, as you do. Right. And then it was like, Shannon, if I tell you something in confidence, you can't just like tell everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm
yeah.
like, okay,
Like a classic overcompensation.
Yeah. So I had to kind of move it back, but I found a much better environment and I was able to be more successful. Right. Like if it feels wrong, it's wrong. And I think that's what I learned there. But that feedback just felt bad. I was like, how do you even, it's not even constructive.
Yeah. What was the context of her sharing it? So you go and you give her your notice. Was it in the notice meeting or was it like a review that just happened to be around that time?
There was a review before it where it was kind of touched on that, like, if you want to be seen as like someone that can take the heat, like you can't ever show any weakness pretty much. And I was like, I wasn't really showing weakness. I was just saying like I had a lot going on that night, but I'll figure it out. Like I was just being honest about the context of like what I was doing. And it was fine. It worked out fine. But then in the actual notice giving was you should think more about what you can give to your job.
And what was the precursor to that? Is it like, hey, sorry that you're leaving. By the way, why don't you take a seat and like, let me just share some advice for you on the way. Like, was it sort of like that? Like, let me give you some advice here before you go.
Because a lot of it was like, she was like, well, are they just paying you a lot more money? And I was like, well, certainly. Like that is part of it. Yeah. I can't live here anymore. But so yes, that's a part of it. But also like I was in school trying to apply all the things I was learning and they just weren't accepted in the environment. It was like really hard. I'm like, guys, like the whole point of this is like, I learned this last night in school. Like I'm trying to apply this now. Right. And they're like, nah, like it doesn't really apply. It's not really a thing. And I'm like, I just want to go somewhere where I can channel my energy. And that's exactly what I got right in this next opportunity. So I think that there was just like, it was a tough time because there was a lot of turnover on the team. And I think there was frustration around like, how do we keep people? And I guess shame on the way out was the thought. I don't know. It was not great. It wasn't great.
So is there a lesson or some kind of takeaway for folks listening to this where if you're in a situation, something doesn't feel right, is this like the sign that you're in the wrong place? Like, is that the main lesson here? Or is there something else that you think about as you kind of reflect back on that, what you took with you?
I think if you are pushing on the work that you want to do, you are doing what you believe is right, you are trying your best, and all of those things are at odds with the values of the organization, that's never going to change. And it stinks to hear that. I've been in this situation one other time as well. And I was like, oh, this is actually going to make me worse at my job if I keep doing this. And it's a really hard thing to come to, especially if you're in an economy where it's not super easy to change jobs or like there's a lot of things, right? But I think there's like a moment, especially once you get into leadership, that you really need to look at yourself and you're like, if I'm not value aligned with the leaders of this organization or the way that they make decisions or what they value as great work, I am never gonna see that like feeling of completion or like be successful here. And I'm going to be running up a hill like of ice for the next however long I do it until I burn out. And it's a hard thing to face, but I feel like it's often people just think they're like, well, maybe I'm just not good at the job. And it's like, well, that probably isn't it. You can't even get to figure out if you're good at the job because you can't figure out how to make decisions in the way the organization values. Yeah, that's the big lesson for me. And I've felt it everywhere. Even with clients now, I feel it. I'm like, oh, we have different values around work. And that's cool. Like, you should go find someone. It's like dating. It's like marriage, you know? Like, you should go find someone that if their values align with you, that's cool. And then you'll be really happy and you'll be able to be successful.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the show. If you are, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. The data shows something like 40% of the people who listen to the show are actually subscribed. It is the best way for you to support the show, and it helps the algorithm find other listeners who are just like you. If you're feeling generous, a quick rating or review makes a huge difference as well. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. Now let's get back to this episode. So after being on the receiving end of this type of feedback, you go on and obviously you become a leader, a manager, you've kind of been, the head of your own teams. Have you ever had to give similar feedback that you received to somebody else? Like, have you had to tell someone like, hey, I think culturally you're just misaligned here and you don't see it, but I'm going to let you know so that it's not a slow, painful death?
Interesting. Yes. It was the first time I had ever inherited like leaders. So like when I became a VP, you inherit people managers, right? Which is like a whole nother level of, I know you felt this, like just a whole nother level of management. Like it's like, yep. Very, very different than managing doers, right? Like you're helping grow these folks as managers while also respecting the relationship they have with their direct reports. Like it's complex, right?
And typically comes with zero training. At least if you work at an early stage company, no training. Just here's a new job. It's going to have a bunch of stuff you've never encountered before, probably never thought about, but you're going to be the right person to figure it out. And you're like, oh, okay, great. This is going to feel horrible for a while.
And it does. And it's one of those too, where often you come into an organization where the founders are like, I think some of these people aren't working out, but you'll figure it out. The interesting thing here is I actually saw something very different than they did. So I ended up giving them feedback of like, actually, I think the people you think aren't working out, the issue is their management, and their management's not giving them context to be able to be successful. And so I ended up inheriting someone that was so beloved in the organization because this person did everything. Like they worked their butt off. They were great. I loved them personally, like everyone did. They were one of the in-office people, which is so hard with some companies that are like partially in person, partially remote. There's definitely this like allegiance to the people you spend time with sitting next to every day. There is a dynamic change there, like it just is. And so as I was going through figuring out how to reorganize the marketing org, which is what I was brought in to do, kind of like I was brought in to do brand, and then I got moved into marketing immediately because no one was a VP of marketing. And so it wasn't even clear I was this person's boss for a long time. So then I officially became their boss. And
sorry, before you keep going, you had mentioned that you kind of said it like off the cuff, like, oh yeah, and by the way, like there's some people, they might be a part of our future. We're like not really sure. Was that this situation?
Yes, but I actually disagreed with who they thought wasn't a part of the future.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so it was like a individual contributor that they were like, hey, we should probably take a look at this person. Like maybe we should let them go. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Like this person's reporting to somebody else. Like, let's see what that person's doing. And that person was struggling, but was seen as like a rock star. Because from the outside, it's like doing so much across the org, like really good personal relationships, like all these things, right? And I can always tell when someone is not performing because they don't have context or because they are just not a right fit. This person, like this individual contributor, clearly had no context as to what this person should be doing. She just like didn't get enough information to know how to do her job well. So I was like, that feels like she needs to get a chance, right? Like that feels unfair. The other person was a director, paid really highly, hired in 2021. You know, like there was like all that time where people were paid tons of money and
getting was good.
And yeah, life was good. I was one of those people and then laid off. So I remember coaching them constantly. We had a pretty good personal relationship. And one day the founders had been putting a lot of heat on me to figure out like what's going on. And the biggest problem is that we actually couldn't figure out where any of our pipeline was coming from. And this person owned pipeline reporting. And I was like, hey, like, I'm going to need you to like help me more here. Couldn't quite get to the right answers. I think this person was just in the wrong job, like was hired for the wrong thing, like, and unfortunately was super expensive. So like, I couldn't really just like move him into an IC role because like, it just didn't really work. And I was like, damn, this like kind of sucks. So like, I think I don't really know how to make him successful here, which is exactly how I felt in jobs before, where I'm like, I actually don't think where he slotted in. Also, the founders had very different, like the way their brains worked was just so different than the way his did. And he really struggled to manage up. And I could do so much for him, but like at a certain level, it's like, it's kind of expected that he'd be able to do some of it himself. And so I remember him coming to a one-on-one with me. He was like, are you phasing me out? And I was like, number one, I respect the shit out of you. Like, that is so great that you are taking control over the situation. Number two, I am struggling to see how you will ever feel good here. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, is there a place where I can help you feel really successful at your job here? And I'm actually not sure that that is true. And I care enough about you to not like put you through 3 months of trials of all these different potential jobs to like try and find you a fit here, when I actually think I would rather give you a month to like hang out here, help us out, and I can help you find a new job. And then I panicked about California laws about like firing people. I was like, shoot, I think I might have just like broken some laws there. Like, I don't know what I'm allowed to tell this person and not. Of course, in startups, is like no training on that at all.
Yeah.
Of like what legally you can say about laying off or firing or performance or whatever. But it ended up working out well. Like this person, I felt really awful because they had a baby coming. They had all this stuff. I was like, oh, this sucks so bad. But being open and honest with them, like they got a great job after. Everything worked out okay. Like, I don't know how they feel about the situation, but it seemed like, you know, we went on a walk before we left and they like gave me all the information I needed to be successful. And like, they were like, hey, like, good luck. You know, like I tried, couldn't quite do it. And I think it was just a human way to have this conversation of like, hey man, like, are you happy? And he's like, no. It's like, me neither, trying to figure out a way to make you happy. Like, I don't know how to help. Right. And I think it was really hard to give that feedback, but also I could speak from my own experience of saying like, I've been in this position where you just feel awful and there may be no way to change that.
Yeah. Wow. And so they initiated it, right? So their spidey senses were tingling. They could kind of sense things didn't feel good, the way the questions were coming in, the way the presentations had gone, whatever it was, right? There were some details. Yep. It didn't feel good. And they had the courage to just hit it head on.
Awesome. I was like, you know what? Let's talk about it. And how would this feel good for you? Like, what would be your ideal situation if you can't be successful here? Like, what? And he's like, can you just give me some time? And I was like, yeah, but this means I'm trusting you to not do anything shady and weird. But like, yeah. And he proved that he, you know, was really like honest and responsible and like helped with everything and hired a contractor to do some of the pipeline reporting that like he just couldn't figure out, you know, like it was okay. It was hard, but one of those moments where I'm like, okay, you can make an impact on people's lives and careers if you just treat people like human beings.
Well, so what's interesting is I feel like most of the time when I chat with folks who've kind of had a situation or a tough conversation like this, it's usually manager initiated. And usually by the time you've had it, you've like thought through what you want to say and maybe even role played it or like ran it by HR first. You didn't really have that, right? They brought it up.
Nope.
So how did you, because here's like what I'm thinking about in my head is if I'm in your shoes, I'm so fucking awkward. I'm going to be like, let me like talk to like whoever my boss is and like, let's like circle. You didn't do that, right? So had you already thought through this? Like, did you already know where you stood and how you felt? Like, how did you have the confidence, you know, to say what you said and not hedge or do the thing that I probably would have done?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit like if you, not to relate it back to dating again, which I haven't done in like 15 years, so I don't know why this is like helpful for me. But when you know you should break up with someone and they finally come to you and they're like, are we breaking up? And you're like, yeah, we are. I was like 90% of the way there, but I also was worried about the impact on him. And I was worried about like, I didn't quite have a solution for what to do next yet, but that's not his problem, right? Like his problem is not what I'm going to do when he's gone. His problem is what's going on with my job. So when he confronted me, I had to listen to my gut to say, Shan, you know what you're going to do. You know that this is going to be the end goal. You don't have it all figured out yet, but like, that's not on him to help you do. That's your job. Like suck it up, be the grown up in the room and be honest with him. And that's the way I handled it. I was sitting in this exact seat. I just have a vivid memory. That's the weird thing about working remote. I've sat in this exact seat for a few jobs, but I remember just being like, I took a deep breath and I was like, yeah, I think we should talk about your future here and what that looks like and how I'm like where I'm struggling to figure out how to make you successful and the business successful and the founders successful all at the same time. But I also want to serve you in a way that like you deserve to be treated, right? Yeah. Because you've done a lot of work here and you've been very honest and helped build the team. And I appreciate you coming to me and talking to me like a grown up about it, which was really refreshing for me too. It forced me to have to make a decision, which I should be forced to do because I have a hard job. That's my job. As a VP, pretty much all you do is make decisions. So pony up. Like, got it. You got to say it. Like, there's nothing else you can do. Right. And it worked out. It didn't have to. It could have been terrible. He could have been like, you wrongfully put me in a position where I could never be successful. It could have gone a million bad ways, but luckily it didn't.
And how do you address the rest of the team after that? What's that first meeting like?
So we had made the decision that he was going to stay around for like a few weeks. And I did say to them after, the team was pretty small. It was like I had three other direct reports. It was like 4 of them. And so I did say, hey, just want to let you know, you're going to be seeing this person a little less. We're working on figuring out what that role looks like. And he's actually helping me craft that role.
And were they in that meeting?
No, I did this all one-on-one. Always do it one-on-one. I never announce team things in team meetings. Like, I've also had teams that are not like 15 people. I've always had between like 3 and 6 or 3 and 7. So like enough that you can have one-on-one 15-minute chats with people to be like, hey, I never want you all to get this information all together where you have to respond to it. That just feels gross. Like, I don't want to make you do that. And if you have questions, I want you to feel like you can ask. And so I just met with them each individually, just being like, hey, they had all felt it coming. Everyone did. So they were like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, it's really cool that he's going to be around and like, he can help us figure out what we're going to do next. And then of course they all asked like, well, is anyone else? I'm like, I can't promise anything ever. Of course, I worked at one of these companies too that was like after every quarterly offsite, a bunch of people were fired. It was like, it's like the classic startup, like just after every board meeting. But I was like, I can't promise anything. Right now, this is what I'm seeing. And I appreciate all of you like pitching in and helping. We're going to do the best we can. You know, it's like being the parent, being like, just like the flight attendant, just keep giving out the pretzels like during the turbulence, you know? like what else can you do? Just be like, the sure person in the room.
So we're kind of talking about stuff where you make the best decision given the circumstances, given the information you've got. But I'm curious if there's ever been a time where you felt like you made a mistake or there was a situation that you wish you handled differently and what that might have been.
Yes. So it's funny, when I was prepping for this question, which I did prep a little bit, is that I really, 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 really hate making mistakes. Like, in terms of like, I don't have a great story about how I sent an email to 3,000 people that had the wrong date. Like,
I got one of those. Those aren't great. You don't want that one.
I know, but that one sounds like fun. I don't know.
Mine was 50,000. It was 50,000 people. It was not fun. I'll tell you, it was not fun. It was like my 3rd week of work.
I know. I feel like that's a rite of passage though. Like, I don't have one of those, but I actually had one recently as I started my business where I made so many mistakes. Talk about the thing that I was not, no rule book. I don't know what I was thinking. One of which being I took on a client. It was actually through a firm, and it was, so what I do, a lot of what I do is messaging, positioning, and some like high level brand work. That can mean so many things. And I was not clear about my process or my outcomes with this firm, but they wanted me to, like, they just put me on a client pretty much. It was pretty quick. I hadn't had a lot of revenue in the last month before. It was like I had a slow summer. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this. Cool. So I come to them my first week with like what I produced, and they were like horrified. They were like, what is this? Like, this is not done. Like, and they were, the way that the feedback was given was like, you don't care.
Before we get into the meat of it, I just want to understand the context. So there's a firm, either a VC or a PE firm. And for folks who are listening who aren't in the solopreneur game, the VCs typically put you in touch with clients within their portfolio. So that's the situation. So you're working with the client, but the client didn't necessarily hire you, but you've met them, I assume.
This was actually a creative firm. It's like a consulting firm. So it was like they were bringing me in to lead a client for them because they were scaling.
Got it. Okay.
So I went in on this. I was like, all right, I'm going to lead this client for them. But there was no onboarding. There was no like, this is how we do things. I like asked them for a few decks, but realized they were kind of new. Like within a year or so, they had done a few of these, and I had been an in-house operator as a CMO, but neither one of them had, right? Like all these things, right? So one had worked in marketing and the others had worked at agencies, right? Which I've never worked at an agency. I actually don't like them at all. And I don't ever want to work at one. No offense to anyone doing that. So I came to them with my first like deliverables, and I got feedback like, what the hell is this? Like, this is like not done. This is like not polished. It's not the quality we expect, like all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, like my understanding was like, we're collaborating on this client. So I'm giving you my initial ideas Like, that's just the kind of person I am. I'm very first draft first. Like, let's talk about it. Let's poke holes in it. Let's like dig into it. Like, I don't go into a hole, create things and come out with like a perfect product. Like, that's just not the way I work. And it was awful. Like, I remember getting this feedback and being like, oh my God, like, am I really bad at this work? Like, I just started my business. Like, what if, like, it's only my second client. And I was like, this is not a good sign. And also I was really excited about this firm because they were going to continue to give me work. So it wasn't just one client. This was like potentially a lot of clients, right?
Yeah, right. And you got a lot riding on this. Probably identity-wise as like a new business owner, getting a couple W's on the board is so important for your confidence and for the momentum.
And of course, like, you productize your offer when you first start your business because that's what everyone tells you to do. And I'm like, is this the wrong product? Like, do I not have product market fit? Like, what am I doing? And I ended up asking them for like a call, because this was all coming over Slack too. So of course it's like 7 p.m. I'm like getting the Slack and I'm like sitting with my baby. My husband's laid off. I'm the only one making money. So I'm like, this is like, what a nightmare, right? And I'm like, big CEO energy, Shan. Good job. Like, when you already like, great work. You're really killing it. And I ended up asking them for a call. And I was like, I just need you to know that I'm horrified by this feedback. Like, I have never in my life, like, received feedback that the quality of my work is not up to par. Like, that's just not something I do. And I understand that I didn't set expectations properly, but also, like, I really need you to set expectations about what you're expecting me to do. Like, what are you expecting me to deliver? And what we ended up doing is bringing a copywriter on the account. She did what they were looking for her to do, which is like write perfect taglines, which is like what they needed, which is not what I do. And I ended up like leading the account from a strategic perspective, and it worked out really good. And now I've worked with these people for the last almost, year and a half. But it was a real lesson in like expectation setting and like being way more clear than I ever want to be, because I'm such like an operate on vibes person. Like, I'm just like, yeah, let's do great work together. It's going to be awesome. And then I'm like, until it's not, like, that was not great. Not good. And so it was a huge learning lesson. I felt like had a lot riding on it, because I was like, damn, like, this could open so many doors for me at a time where I was like trying to figure out what my business was even doing. Yeah. And it was like a huge hit to my confidence. You don't have coworkers. You don't have a boss to go to. You don't have anyone. Like, I just have my husband where I'm sitting. My husband's a union electrician. Do you think he understands anything about what I'm doing?
Right. You're like, is it me? Is it them? Let me read the email that they sent. I think it this way. Do you see it that way? He's like,
what's Slack?
He knows what's Slack.
So they sent you an email? Oh, like, no, he really doesn't. I feel like Brand doesn't even have a computer. And so I was
That's really refreshing. That's really nice.
Oh, it's so nice. Yeah. He does not know how to get into Google Drive, which is incredible. I didn't know that for like 10 years. I put our bills in there and he had never been looking at them. But it was really hard. It's giving me like hives thinking about it right now. Like that Slack message coming up and just seeing it and being like, oh, like, what do you mean I'm awful?
How long is the gap between Slack message coming in and that Zoom call? Is it the next day? Is it the same night?
One day.
Did you hop on?
I can't handle that. So I did respond immediately on Slack being like, whoa. Like, it seems like you both curated the Slack together. It's very long. So I'm glad you like thought about this, but like, I need you to know this was never my intention. Like, I also have a lot of like internal things about needing to be the most reliable person ever. And everyone's like first go-to for things. And like that I'm trying to undo a lot, especially working for myself. But I was like, whoa. I was like, and if this doesn't work out, that's okay. But I want you to know it's not because I didn't care. Like, that I need to make really clear. Like, if I'm not the right fit for the work that you need to get done, totally fine. Like, that I'm chill with, no problem at all. But like, I don't want my reputation to be that I show up with half-assed ideas. Because I remember, I think I wrote in one of them, like, I don't feel like any of these are a slam dunk, but I feel like they're a good start. Like, let's talk through them. And they were like, you clearly gave us things you didn't like. And I'm like, well, that's not what I meant though. Like, but I see how it came off that way. Like, I see if you're an agency person that's used to like buttoned up copywriters that are giving you like perfect words and graphic designers with pixel perfect like imagery, I totally get it. I'm a person that's worked in early stage startups that like everything's a mess until it's still kind of a mess when it goes out, and then you learn a lot and then you like iterate, right? So, oh yeah, totally different, but it was scary. It was really scary.
So there's a day. So here's what I want to explore. So there's a day gap between getting the Slack message, having the call. Do you sleep that night? Or is this one of those things? Yeah, because I would imagine not, right? So I've had some stuff with clients, especially early on, and I thought about it all night. Like, when you're the business, it's you, right? There's nowhere else to look. If there's a mistake, it's you. And so you stayed up thinking about it?
Yep. And I followed up with every client that I had in the hopper because I was convinced I had no pipeline. And I was like writing like all of this, joining every community. Like I was, and I had like how old was my son? Maybe 9 months or so. And I just couldn't even like parent. I was like, Pete, I need you to take, like my husband's name is Pete. I was like, I'm going to need you to, I'm not here right now. And I don't know what else to do. And I was like, but I need to talk to them early tomorrow. And then I felt much better after the Zoom call because they were like, yeah, we thought it was weird too. I'm like, okay, yeah, it was like, they were like, we had just expected you to give us something different. I'm like, I totally see how that could happen. Like I am fully aware that didn't work. But I think there's a lesson here constantly for me of like confronting the hard thing, right? Which is like someone asked me if they're getting laid off, confront them about it. Someone said that my work is not the right thing, get in front of it. Like there's no reason to let this stuff like simmer and like just talk to them about it and have the hard conversation. You cannot avoid it. So just do it now.
Hey, if you're enjoying the stories on this show and feel like you're ready to tackle some of your own hurdles, I'm here to help. If you didn't know already, I offer one-to-one coaching specifically for people who work on or around growth teams who want to have a bigger influence and impact in their roles. Maybe you're navigating some tough moments, whether it's managing your team or handling feedback. Maybe you just want to step into a bigger leadership role. Or maybe you're at a unicorn company today and you want to make sure that the company doesn't outgrow your skill set. Either way, I can help. If you're interested in learning a little bit more, head to deliveringvalue.co/coaching to learn a little bit more and set up a call with me to see if we jive. All right, enough from me. Back to the episode. You know what's so interesting, Shannon? So you're sharing all this. I'm always listening. Like my favorite part of this show is to understand who you are as a child and how that might influence who you become and like what you do and what you don't do. So let's just match the two bookends here. Because you said I started as a child, I was very risk averse, but now you as an adult and as a professional and as a founder hit this shit head on. Like what changed? Like where does that change for you?
I think a lot of it is nature versus nurture of like, it's even funny to watch now, like my mom be a grandparent. She's like so worried my son's going to hurt himself all the time. And I'm like, oh, like I see where this came from. Like I was constantly told that like everything is scary and like you like, and there was definitely a right and wrong way to behave and like all of these things, right? Not necessarily just from my parents, but from the environment that I was in. And I think as I got older and started to see the value of how I could feel if I was just upfront and honest and there, that just felt so much better to me, right? So now I know it's worth the conversation. And I actually now have very, very little patience for anything that is not like upfront and like true and real. Like that, like my friendships are very, very like, we just say it how it, like we just talk to each other like we don't walk around anything. Same thing in my marriage, like just not worth it to me, right? It's just wasted time, right? Because there's so much time you could spend not worrying, right? And I think I just learned that along the way. I think there was enough like small data points to give me that information. I think it was always in me. It was probably like tampered like as a kid. So of like, hey, just be good at school and be quiet. And I think there's like, and that's like structural like education too. It's like, a lot of that too. And there's some gender stuff there and there's a lot of things there, right? And I think I have been able to see enough success from not being that way that I'm like, and I just have no tolerance for it. My anxiety just goes like through the roof. Like I just need to solve things now. Like I have to be careful that I don't get too emotionally. Like I should like probably take 5 minutes before I jump to a conversation. But yeah, I definitely have changed a lot over the years.
And what would be your advice to someone listening to this who's made a mistake at work? They had something that didn't go well, whether they got feedback on it or not. Like they knew they had a screw up and they're dreading whatever the conversation that has to happen is.
I think you have more power in those conversations than you think you do. Look, someone came to me and said, are you getting rid of my job? Like you have some power in these situations to come and say, and in the right environment saying, I screwed up. This is what happened. And this is how I'm going to mitigate this situation to not happen again. And if it's your boss saying like, hey, can I actually ask for a second check? I may need a little bit for a little while. Can I have a second layer of QA? Because I think maybe I'm burning out or I have too much on my plate and not make an excuse for it. Not say like, hey, like, this wasn't my fault. It's like, no, but I'm also a human being just like you. And like, I'm learning and and I take responsibility. Like, I don't want you to think I don't take responsibility for it, but I want to be able to move forward in a productive way if you're willing to. And, that's all of life, right? Like that's not just work, but I think taking back some of the power and not saying like, not just waiting for the check-in to come onto your calendar, like, it's coming. What if you say to your boss, hey, I'd really like to check in about this because I know that this was a big, like I don't feel good about how this went. And that's what I did, right? In these situations, it was like, I stepped into the power position to say like, I want to fix this because I care enough, not waiting to be like, do you think they notice? Yeah, they always notice. Like, it's always, and as a boss too, like if someone came to me saying, hey, like I need additional support here. As you can see, this didn't go well. I'm like, thank you for the self-awareness. Like, that's what I want. Like, absolutely. Let's figure out a way to make a system for this to work. Or are you in the wrong job? Which like could be that case too.
What's something that you wish more leaders were honest about?
How little they know about what they're doing.
It's funny. You know what's so funny? The last interview that I did, they said the same thing, which is just really interesting. So tell me why that's your answer.
So I worked for, I think this is a mutual friend of ours, Margaret Kelsey, who is actually the reason why I know you, I think, I'm pretty sure. And she was the VP of marketing at OpenView that brought me there. And the thing that I always loved about her is that the reason why she was always a step ahead is because the way that she made decisions, not because she knew more, but she would say, hey, here's my decision-making framework of how I make decisions. And that is why she's the leader, right? Because that is a skill that you build to become an executive, right? And instead of people looking at me saying, have you done this before? I can say, sure, but never in this exact context, because obviously, right? Like that's never happened before. I see some patterns. I recognize some things. I'll show you that. But this is how I'm going to make the decision. Like I'm going to walk you through it. And that feels way more honest to me than saying like, I know exactly how to do this because I've done it 100 times. It's like, well, you haven't actually done this exact thing 100 times. Like you've seen parts of it. You've seen pieces of it with some of the same people, some different people, like in a different context at a different time. And I think there's a want for a lot of leaders to feel, you can tell I'm thinking a lot about parenting right now too. I'm 9 months pregnant for anyone that cannot see this. You have to have every answer. Like you just have to know everything. And you have to give this veil of like, I'm always the adult in the room and I know every answer, instead of just saying like, hey, I feel really strongly that I can make the right decision because I've made a lot of decisions in the past. And like, this is the way I've done it. And you can learn this from me. This is something you can learn from me. You don't have to be in the industry for 10 years to do it. You can just practice it over and over. And that makes great leaders under you, right? As I'm saying, like Margaret taught that to me, right? Like, and I'm now able to use that, right? And so I think I wish a lot of leaders didn't feel the need to have this veil. Founders too, man. Wow. That they like really know everything that's going on. It's like a lot of founders have never been to a board meeting before until they raise capital.
Right.
And it's like, I've been to 40, you know what I mean? It's like, it's okay to ask me how to do it. I actually love when a founder comes to me and says, hey, how have you seen marketing do a pre-read and an in-person board meeting in a really effective way? It's like, awesome. I have done this quite a few times. So like, I can help you do that. And like, you can then use my input to make the right decision, because you're still the boss, of how you're going to do it. There's so much humility that I think goes a long way. It doesn't mean you're not still in the position of power. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be respected. We're all just like adults creating adult problems that we then have to solve. Like it's not that deep, you know, like it's.
Well, it's like really interesting to think about. So I think that's a great answer. When you're like an IC or a senior IC, I think it's very easy to look at the people who are above you in the decision-making seats and think they've got all the answers. That person just has the answers, right? They just know they always know what to. I remember I told my professional coach that. She was like, oh, who do you look up to? I described it. She said, why do you look up to them? I was like, well, they always have the right answer. She's like, dude, I got to stop right here. And she kind of interrupted me. We had like a long talk about it. We probably more than would talk. And I didn't know that was a belief that I had until I said it out loud and she parroted it back to me. And so that's a really interesting answer.
And I have a memory of becoming a people manager for the first time and getting the coaching that it was actually about having the right questions, not the right answers.
Yeah. That's like a mindset fuck right there, isn't it?
And because you're used to, a lot of the time when you become a people manager, it's because you're a really successful IC. I feel like you've talked to a lot of people about this, like on this show, and then no one's trained to manage people. And,
not at a startup. Nobody gets trained. No.
Even at a mid-market company, they are like, a lot of them haven't figured that out. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's this, you're appraised for your individual contribution, right? And then you are told to bring a group along. I actually find the best I see to people managers are the ones that are already starting to do that. They're really good, like aggregators of people and ideas and systems. And so they're totally ready for it. I was used to being in the room and always having the answer, like people looking to me for it. And then I started managing a team and it was like, how can I talk 10% of the meeting, but have 500% of the impact? Because I asked the right questions of the people that are working for me. I have 5 people now that work for me that are better than me at all of their disciplines. And we only get better if we all get better together. And by me coaching them and asking them the right questions, that's how that happens, right? And I think, I got it's really, really good coaching that I got right on how to do that.
I was going to ask if you read a book about it or if there was some training or something. No, because there's a really famous book called The Coaching Habit that I read at some point, which is a manager book on how to ask better questions and get more from your team with giving less direction. And I read it, and I only read it because like I was like making mistakes and getting feedback that like I was doing too much. And I just did it out of my own survival instinct. And so what did you do that wasn't that?
So I got this feedback from the CMO and I had a VP boss. And so I asked her to keep me accountable. So I said, every meeting that you're in with me, I want you to keep me accountable that's a behavior I'm going to start like showing. I actually put it as one of my OKRs, like in
cool. For
my quarterly review.
Yep.
Because we would have like a mix of like business level metrics. And then especially for leadership, it would be like where am I trying to grow?
And did your team know this or just your manager knew this?
Yeah, no, my team did not know.
It's like a side quest. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. Also, I didn't want my team to think I was like practicing something in real time. I didn't want to make it weird, right? So,
but like, why is that weird? That's like a normal thing to do. If you're in a leadership position, you kind of work on your leadership skills, and the only way to do it is to like be in the room and try some stuff. That's like one of those things I feel like shouldn't be weird.
Yeah, that's fair. That is true. That's why you're good at this. But yeah, I had a manager that was like, keep me in check here. And then also like, feel free to ask my direct reports if they've noticed a difference. Like I wasn't telling them, I'm purposely not talking. I'm actually asking questions. But at the end of the quarter, I did want them to give feedback on if they felt different being managed by me than they did at the beginning. And it was bumpy at the beginning, but I saw a huge growth, like huge in my ability to also just be more impactful. And I didn't feel like all the work was on me anymore. And I would leave meetings being like, I'll do all this. And they're like, that's like literally not why you have a team.
I know. That's like the instinct though. That's like muscle memory. We have to like break that.
So hard. So yeah. And then I did, at that time I was reading a lot, like Dare to Lead is one of my absolute favorite books by Brené Brown. And like, there's certain things there that I found very helpful, but I've never been particularly good at like reading an entire book and applying it. I'm pretty good at concepts, like all the Lencioni books. Like I understand all those concepts. I have leaders that have loved them, things like that, but not like personal like not any specific trainings or anything other than being in business school and doing that at the time.
So how long have you been on your own? 2 years?
No, a year and a little bit. So it was February of last year.
For some reason, I thought it was closer. Well, almost a year and a half, basically.
Almost a year and a half. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And so for you, a year and a half in, about to take parental leave, when you come back, like, I'm just curious for you, like at this stage in your life and in your career, like, what are your goals? How do you think about this next chapter?
Yeah, I love that. Anytime someone asks me about goals for my business, I actually really like the way you asked this question, because I often say I have goals for my life and my business fits into those goals. And
this is a perspective that I only have gained since being on my own, where you can think about work in a different category than I think when you're in-house. And anyway, so thank you for noticing. That's cool.
Yeah. So my goal right now is, I have a 19-month-old and I'm about to have a baby in 3 weeks. And at the most, I'm glad I made it to this interview.
Yeah. I know I was nervous.
I know, me too. And the thing that I'm so grateful for right now is that I have 3 clients right now. I've offboarded a few that were a little more like meeting heavy. These ones are all very I feel very productive and impactful, but I can do the work when I feel like I can. And then I am actually coming back to work earlier than I had when I was in-house. I took 4 full months off and it felt really yucky. Actually, it went from being like 100% working to 100% only momming to 100% working again. It just I'm just a very integrated person. All of my things integrate. And I think that's why this kind of solopreneurship life works really well for me, because I like it all kind of at every point of the day, whenever I need it. So I am going to take another client back in after about 8 weeks of leave because I'm only going to work 10 hours a week. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be good. But I also give myself the opportunity to change my mind at any time. But my accountant knows I front loaded my year. So there's logistically, I figured that out. And I get some state funding because we live in an amazing state that pays you. And so the next chapter for me, I think I'm allowing myself to have my brain completely rewired by becoming a parent again, because it does that, and figuring out what I want my business to look like in this next phase of life, right? Which is, I really like being a fractional CMO for one company and then doing founder brand and advising for 2 others or 3 others. And that's like a really nice mix. And I make a good amount of money and I'm able to make my in-house salary in half the time. That was always my goal. And someone asked me recently, like, so what's next? You hiring people? I was like, no way.
Definitely not. No, absolutely
No
not.
way. Also, like, what if this is enough? What if I found it?
In a world full of LinkedIn and Twitter posts on people bragging in public, I think that's like a really beautiful perspective. Like, what if this is enough, right? Could it be enough? We could have other hobbies. It doesn't have to all be work. I think that's really beautiful.
One of my big goals for next year is to figure out how to make some passive income in my business. Because right now it is very like service delivery, right? So I get paid for retainer hours, right? And I do love that, but I have aspirations to make it more efficient and to like find things that I can do that feel, I had an old mentor say to me, he goes, it kind of feels like your work doesn't feel like work. And I was like, yeah, it is a little bit like that, like 80% of the time. And I think there's a lot of value in that, and showing my kids that that's something that their mom can do and that she can be present and she can also support the family. Like she can do all these things, right? Like my husband's been laid off for the last 1.5 years. So my business has supported us for this long. And I also survived and somehow made another kid. So like, I think there's just so many ways to do it that are not the like traditional ways, right? And I think I am so sure that I'm going to keep fighting for that. That's the only thing I'm sure about. That I'm going to continue to fight for a life that fits my values, my family, what I want for my brain, my business, all these things, right? Like, and it's going to change all the time, but I'm not going to give up on it and just like fall back into what feels natural or common. Like, I just can't do it anymore.
And for folks who are listening, who want to connect with you, who might want to hire you, maybe they want to work with you, where should we send them?
You can come and find me on LinkedIn. Speaking of LinkedIn.
And are you going to be on LinkedIn when you're out? Are you on leave? That was like a big thing that I debated when I took leave last year.
Yeah, I think it's funny. One of my friends is like, I'm deleting Slack off your phone. I'm like, no, like you're on your phone a lot with a baby. Like, I think I'll be okay. I do think my identity will shift a lot, but I am allowing myself the grace of letting anything in that feels right and good at the time. So I don't know yet, but I think I will be there. My DMs will be open. So if anyone wants to chat, fractional marketing, leadership, brand, messaging, positioning, founder brand, any of that stuff, I'm sure I'll be very happy to use some different brain cells than just, producing food for a child. Sure. I'm very excited about it, but I know that it does. You want to talk to adults time in that situation. So yeah.
We'll put links to your LinkedIn and to your site and everything below. Thank you for coming on, sharing your journey and some of the game and some of the speed bumps along the way.
Awesome. This was so great. Thank you for having me.